Hey guys, it's been a long time since we had a video on our channel and I apologize for that. This is my 2015 Duke 200 and it has been sitting like this for 2 years. I was out of town and nobody in my family rode it. Over this period, quite a few issues have cropped up. So when I came back and tried to start the bike, it wouldn't start. All I could hear was a small whir in the tank. It cranks fine, but it doesn't start. So I'm thinking there's some issue with the fuel pump. Apart from this, there are two other things that I would like to address with this bike. The front fork seals are gone, I think. It has been leaking oil and I could see some stains on the lower part of the fork. While I'm in there changing the fork seals, I also thought I could change the triple clamp bearings as I felt something was funny last time I rode the bike. Also, there are lots of spider webs around the vehicle and it does need a good cleaning. Well, that is one rusty looking chain. So, without further ado, let's get to it. So the first thing I will address is the front fork seals. To get to the front fork seals, you need to remove the mud guards first. So 3 bolts on each side and of course the mud guard. Then the shock protectors, I guess. And then you got to remove the brake calipers. There are just 2 bolts holding them. Remove them and the caliper will slide apart. Next you gotta undo the wheel bolts, undo the clamping screws on the right side and pull the axle out so that you can remove the wheel. You can kind of see in the back that I've got a jack to support the vehicle in the front. Next you got to remove the wheel speed sensor. There are just 2 screws and a zip tie holding it in place. So undo them and remove it, and now the front is entirely free. Now it's time to remove the instrument console and the headlight. Just 2 screws and it's out. There are also 2 screws at the bottom that need to be removed. There will be 3 connections between the meter console and the headlight unit. Remove all those to remove the headlights. You do not need to remove the headlight unit if you are just replacing the fork seals, but if you are replacing the steering or the handlebar bearings, you need to do this. So the forks are held by clamping force of the 2 screws and another screw at the top. So loosen these screws and just tap it out. Mine was pretty hard, so I had to use a screwdriver. This is just me pulling apart the forks. Remove the top end cap and then the nut below that, and you should be able to drain the oil out. That is the dust seal coming off. Well, I couldn't find a replacement dust seal. I don't know if it's normal or the shop didn't have it, but I would have loved to replace this too. Next, there will be 2 oil seals. Just pry them out using a screwdriver and try not to damage the seats. So these are the new seals that I purchased. These were fairly cheap, I think 150 rupees per pack. I just pounded them in with the old seals. Be careful not to damage the seals when you're not putting in them in. I used a rubber mallet. Here goes the locking rings, and then the outer seal. Yeah, the outer seal. Be sure to insert the dust seal before you assemble the upper part. Now here's an interesting part. The upper nut has to be torqued to a specific value, and you can find this value in the service manual. I used my improvised torque wrench, which is just a weighing scale at the end of a 3/4 inch wrench. This works pretty well for me. Next, it's just filling up the oil and pumping the shocks. That's it. We're done here. So the next thing to address is the fuel pump. So to check if your pump is working fine, just unplug the outlet from the petrol pump and turn the key on. If the pump is good, you should get a good flow in the outlet. Mine, I was getting nothing, so I figured there was a problem with the pump and removed the sending unit, which is right here on my table. I knew the issue was with the motor, and I unsoldered the 2 wires going to the motor and removed the pump. This unit I have is called the fuel sending unit and comprises of the fuel pump and the fuel level sensor. If you were to go to a KTM service center, you will have to replace the whole sending unit, which costs 8,500 rupees. I would suggest you to pinpoint the issue and just replace the parts you need. I was able to find a seller for this pump, and I will attach the link in the description below. I ordered the replacements for these fuel pump and the filter on Amazon, and it was around 2,500 rupees. The kit comes with the motor, the pump assembly and the filter. I just wiggled the pump unit in and then soldered the electrical connections, and then fix the hose clamps to the filter, also replace the filter, and then assemble the pump unit inside the fuel tank. There's just a gasket and a few screws that go in. We are now here at the last part of the resurrection. I'm gonna apologize in advance because I only have a part of the footage. After you remove the handlebars, you will find the actual nut that holds the bearing in place. This is what you will need to torque at the end. So this is the part where I got really frustrated because I couldn't pull out the bearing without a proper bearing puller, as I didn't have one, and I had to make do with whatever I had, and driving the bearings back in was not easy either. Finally assembling everything back in, I had to make a special tool to tighten the nut. This nut also has to be torqued to a specific value. After this, it is just a matter of putting everything back together. Let's go see the results.